Oh, that's funny. All right, so we can go ahead and get this party started. All right, everybody, thank you. It is 3:59, so we're close enough, but we're gonna go ahead and kick this off. Thank you so much for joining us today. Sits with Spartan. This is our Christmas and / leasing edition. And so for everybody that's joining us for the first time or may have forgotten that we started doing the SIPs kind of back when everything first shut down, when everything and nobody really knew what was going on, and tenants couldn't pay stuff. So we all just got on and started sharing, hey, what's going on in Birmingham, what's going on with Spartan, what's going on with Alabama rental property, just to try to answer any questions of the unknown. Well, we got a lot of great feedback on, hey, we're able to address kind of just things as they're changing. So we've been doing it every month and picking different topics and different members of the team. As you can see, we're not in our office anymore. We are back at the house, or back working from home. Just with the increase in COVID cases in Alabama, we would prefer to err on the side of safety. And so we're temporarily back working from home just for about 6 weeks, and hopefully everything will die down. In regards to that, it's not been very easy property management remote, but we've got a great team in place. And if you're a current investor of ours, that hopefully you've been in contact with your CSMs and you kind of know what's going on, and that we're not in the office right now. I'm Lindsay Davis, CEO and co-founder Spartan Invest, and I'm so excited to have MaKayla Dansby with us. She is our leasing manager, and welcome to SIPs, MaKayla.
Thank you.
Yeah, so tell us, this is your first time on SIPs, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Houston. I moved to Alabama to go to college. I graduated from the University of Alabama, Roll Tide, with a undergrad degree in engineering, and I'm currently working on my master's in operations management. I started with Alabama rental property in Spartan. In June of 2019, I was brought on as the leasing admin to just kind of help answering the phones, doing some, basic admin paperwork type stuff for our agents. And I was moved over to the leasing manager position in February. And it's actually kind of funny because I grew up around rental properties. Growing up when I was a kid, my dad had several rental properties that he owned personally, and he and I would do all of the maintenance, all of the move outs ourselves. So it's kind of funny that I ended up back in this career.
That is funny too, because and really good that you got kind of a firsthand look on doing the renovations and the move out. So you already knew coming in that it's work.
Yes. And we even did all the maintenance at the time ourselves too. So I kind of have seen a little bit of everything.
Yeah, that's pretty intense. So we're going to dive in. We're going to talk about all things leasing, occupancy, why it's important, and how much emphasis we put on it at Alabama rental property. And as you guys, this fly is going to drive me insane. As you guys know, Alabama rental property is the property management division of Spartan Invest, and so why occupancy leasing is so crucial to our business and to your cash flow. So we're going to dive into all of that. But first off, MaKayla, talk a little bit about. We have to talk about COVID and how it's affected and everything. Talk a little bit about just leasing. We've touched on it a lot in previous episodes, but what you saw, what kind of we expected, what you saw, and then what you're seeing right now as it relates to COVID and continuing to rent our properties.
Yeah, so when COVID, when the shutdowns first started, when COVID started really affecting Alabama, we really were preparing for the worst. We expected our deposits and our occupancy to just take a huge, massive hit from this, because we figured that, people aren't going to be out, they aren't going to be moving, they're not going to have the money to move. So we really were preparing for the worst. But we didn't experience that at all. We were killing it during that first wave of COVID. I know a lot of people were struggling, but our team was able to, get tons and tons of our properties filled, tenants into the homes. And we really didn't miss much of a beat when we were going through the beginning of this. We did have our team home. we were relying solely on our self-showing lockboxes, but we didn't see much of a slowdown.
Okay, well, and that's awesome because, like, I remember that was a huge, huge fear when everything shut down. It's like, how are we going to continue to lease? Like, tenants now no longer have to pay rent. And so, who's going to be moving during this time? And we found that we were wrong, and that it was very, very, very busy. So you said self-showing lockboxes and then your team. So tell us just kind of your department, leasing department. What does that look like at Alabama Rental Property? Because you said agents and self-showing. So just break that down for everybody.
Yeah, so we've got a team of 6 licensed real estate agents. And the way that we kind of manage our houses on the market is we have them all broken into territories. So each agent has a territory and an inventory of houses that they're responsible for. We've kind of found that this is the best way to make sure that every single property is getting all the love and attention that it needs. Our team's there usually once a week checking every single property. They do all the agent showings there, and that's just their main focus. They usually have anywhere between 5 to 15 properties that they're really focusing on. And then we also utilize our self-showing lockboxes that are available 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week, just to make sure that we can accommodate for those customers that have an 8 to 5 job like we all do. And people who want to see on the weekends. So with the conjunction of our self-showing lockboxes and our agents, we're able to kind of meet every single customer's needs, whatever they may be.
Yeah, and that's really, really different having both, and we were of that mindset, and that we're going to provide agents to lease all of our properties. And then, almost 2 years ago, we started offering the self-showing lockboxes as just options for, if people didn't want an agent to show them. We were all about, hey, customer service, customer facing, when it came to our tenants and placing them in a property. So that establishing that was crucial, 100% in the shutdown, for sure. So let's talk about numbers then. I know you and your spreadsheets, and you love all of the numbers. So what are we looking at? Obviously, the leasing department. What's the big goal?
Well, first I have to say that and you know me, I love spreadsheets. I'm telling you, someone could say the word spreadsheet in a different section of the office. My head's popping out saying, spreadsheet, where? I guess that's just the engineering background in me. But no, we track a lot of numbers for leasing. And our team has an every single day leasing meeting where we meet every single morning and we go over agent showings, the number of self showings from the previous day, deposits, the leads that are coming in, and then any problems that the team is facing that they need help with. I think it's really important to track numbers like that, like the self showings, excuse me, like the leads that are coming in, because those are really big indicators that we can see when we see a spike in our call volume or a spike in our hot leads. We know that there's going to be a spike in deposits coming or a spike in applications. So it's really useful to track those numbers to kind of see how the trends are going. And we really used that a lot during the first shutdown with COVID to make sure that we were tracking to meet our goals.
Yeah, all of those are leading indicators as to which one would you say is the biggest leading indicator to deposits and occupancy?
I would have to say probably our hot leads and then our number of showings. So our leasing line classifies all the calls that are coming in as shoppers or hot leads or just miscellaneous calls. And those shoppers and hot leads are huge for us. Those are people who know what they're looking for. Most of them have already viewed a property or are trying to view a property. And then with our agent and self showings, those are the biggest indicators as to where, the next week or so are heading. And we do kind of see there's about a week or so lag time when we see a spike in calls to that spike in deposits.
So what are the numbers? Like, what are, where do we need to be as far as how many applications, how many showings do we have to do? Or, how many agents are having to show the property before it gets leased? How many showings does the property have to average before it gets leased? Walk us through the metrics and how when, hey, this is a red flag, or this one's not quite right, it doesn't meet our average, falls kind of, it's an outlier. So walk us through that.
So I would say that our call volume per day, when we start seeing, low hundreds to under 100 calls in, that's kind of an indicator that, we might be kind of coming into a slower time, or, things might be slowing down just a little bit. But usually we're seeing the call volume between about 100 calls to 150. During our peak season, we've hit 250. So that's kind of the big number for us with calls. And as far as showings go, I mean, I would say 99% of our properties have showings within a day of being released. If we don't see that consistent showings right from the get-go, we know that there might be a pricing issue with that property, or, maybe there is something missed in renovation. Like, that's a huge indicator for us if we're not seeing immediate showings, immediate interest. And that's probably the biggest thing for us. We usually average, I would say, our team, we're getting like 30 to 35 agent showings a week. We are seeing a decrease in that with COVID. People are trying to be more safe, utilize the self showings, and we average about 150 self showings a week.
100 calls a day. I mean, that's your average. So when it drops below 100, it's going to slow down. That seems just astronomically high.
Yeah.
What are you doing to market all of the properties to get that kind of call volume?
Well, we try to use as many marketing avenues as we possibly can, just to be in front of as many people as possible. We've got some billboards up in some key places. We use a billboard in the Sylacauga-Childersburg area, and then one in Huntsville as well, kind of our smaller markets right now. We also have a commercial running that was super fun. We've actually produced 2 commercials now. Our most recent one had our entire team in it. If you've got time, definitely check that out. It's really awesome. Love that for the team. We also do a lot of Facebook marketing. And then, of course, we do list onto Zillow and all of the third-party sites through them as well.
So I know we're kind of going over. I do want to touch on the Zillow and the marketing a little bit more, but I do want you to talk about what our current occupancy is and how we track all of those metrics. You said that kind of the call volume and the showings and what we average, but what does that all lead to? Like, why track all of that? What's the goal occupancy?
Yeah, so the 2 big leasing things that we track are, of course, occupancy and then our deposits as well, and they tie just hand in hand. Every year at the beginning of the year, we set out leasing goals. Okay, we need this many deposits for the team per week, and this many, per person per week, to make sure that we're going to hit our goals. This past year, it was 17 per week for the team, and then 4 individually. And then our occupancy, we are in the peak of slow season. Usually the November, December, January time is very slow for us. But because we were able to kind of come through the first wave of COVID so strong, we really haven't seen the normal decrease that we do this time of year. We're sitting right about 95.2% occupancy, which historically this time of year is just absolutely amazing. I cannot say how shocked I am that we've been able to kind of pull through this as well as we have.
Right, yeah, because I think anybody in real estate or who has investment property knows that typically when you're talking about leasing, that you do slow down around the holiday months because no one is really, looking to move during Christmas and Thanksgiving and stuff. So that's, over 95% occupancy right now. So is that your current and occupancy number?
That's the 13-week occupancy.
Okay, yeah. So, and that's another thing to take into consideration is that when we're tracking our 13-week, our current, and our 52-week rolling occupancy. And when you purchase a property with Spartan Invest, and then we continue to manage that property for you, the best way to gauge what your occupancy is going to be, or versus what your vacancy is going to be to account for that cost. It's good to look at the 52-week because that's what we're going to average, not necessarily because we could be at 95% occupancy current in spring, but be at 60% in December months and everything like that. So looking at that 52-week is very, very important. So we're tracking all 3 of those metrics just to make sure that we're getting the properties leased. And I know I'm kind of going off. I want to get back to the marketing of this because it's really important. But if your property is occupied, then you're cash flowing. So right. That's your return, that's your investment. That's why it is so important, and that's why me and MaKayla could talk to you for 6-7 hours about this. We're not going to, because it kind of can get boring, but that's just how important leasing is. So going back to the marketing, talk about Zillow and the changes, and hey, 2021, it's going to pose some issues in getting properties rented. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so about a year ago, Zillow made a change that if you were listing onto Zillow through your property management software, so we use Propertyware. If you're listing onto Zillow through Propertyware, there was a fee that they were going to be charging per week per property. At the time, a year ago, the kind of workaround for that was if we listed all of our properties, all of our rentals onto the MLS, and then we were still able to list onto Zillow through the MLS for free. Well, starting in January, they've caught on that we had a little workaround, and we will be seeing a fee coming through per property per day listed on Zillow. We have been working really closely with our Zillow rep to kind of negotiate a price down as much as possible, just so we're getting the best deal for our investors. But that is something that we are going to be experiencing coming January. I think the one benefit that we do have, since we will be paying that fee, we will continue to list on Zillow, because we do get about 65% of our approved applications from Zillow. I mean, we can't afford to lose that 65%. But last year, when we saw Zillow make that change initially, we saw probably half the inventory come off of Zillow of other rentals that didn't choose to go the MLS route like we did, or just chose not to, kind of mess with it at all. So we're expecting to kind of see another big drop in the number of competition on Zillow, which will be beneficial for us.
Yeah, I mean, that's to cover that cost. I mean, that's huge. But because we're tracking all of those other things, we know how important Zillow is. And we cannot speak to other property management companies and what their occupancy is and what their days to deposit is. But we know for us that Zillow is crucial. So it's just, unfortunately, it's going to be a cost that we just have to on to make sure that we can get our properties rented. We had a really great question. One about lease renewals, and we'll get on that in just a minute. But about what the 52-week occupancy is, MaKayla, what is our current 52-week?
We are sitting at 94.4 right now for the 52-week.
Okay, awesome. And then, so just to answer, the question was, and what is it for Huntsville versus Birmingham? So just so you know, we don't track it indifferent as far as occupancy goes. What we do track in regards to market, and and we even look at it as detailed as zip code, is like, hey, how long do the properties sit vacant? So we call that kind of our days to deposit. And what is for this quarter right now, what is Birmingham versus Huntsville's days to deposit? I know we don't track the occupancy differently, but I know we're looking at that.
Yes. So if I remember correctly, our Birmingham area, and that's including, of course, Tuscaloosa, Jasper, that kind of stuff, we're sitting at, I believe, 25 days for the Birmingham area. And then Huntsville, we're sitting between 10 and 15 days, I believe.
Yeah, I knew it. I know it's a lot. It's lower. What is that? It's about 10 days, 10 days lower in the Huntsville area. And the inventory shortage, and we can see that the inventory shortage, given the population growth in Huntsville, is the inventory shortage is just worse in Huntsville. So we're seeing the properties lease a lot faster.
Absolutely.
And you see investors purchase Huntsville properties a lot faster as well, just given the growth that we're seeing. And for the significance of 13-week, we track it on our quarterly basis. So the way that that's why we're looking at current quarter performance. And we do that so as another way of tracking. And if this fly does not leave me alone, we, just so you know, so everybody knows, is that we set everyone up on a performance-based kind of, performance pay. And so a lot of people are driven to that, hey, our quarterly number, and that's how we pay off of. So we also track the occupancy in the 13-week in that regard for our employees standpoint. Man, a lot of great questions. This is great. And it's so, we're dorks. I get it. This is exciting for us, but it's great to see a lot of great questions. Too.
I love a good question. We all know I'm usually the one asking them.
Love to ask them too. So with the Zillow thing, I'm very curious. We could probably do a circle back in about 6 or 7 months to see what kind of effect that's had, because that's a significant cost. We project that's going to hit our budget about $40,000 next year. But and so we can circle back and talk about how Zillow is going to change that. But aside from that, what sets Alabama Rental Properties Leasing Department? What sets it apart? That's what I'm like. What sets it apart from other property management companies and leasing processes?
So I would definitely have to say our team and our customer service. Our team really does go above and beyond in every single aspect possible to make sure that we're meeting the customer's needs. When our team was working remotely from home, they were going above and beyond, making sure they're answering every single phone call, every single text message, and our team is there every step of the way with a customer, from viewing a property to filling out an application, scheduling a lease signing, and then getting that lease signed and getting their keys and getting into their properties. I know that one of our agents a couple of weeks ago, she met a customer at a Taco Bell to help them with the application because they were struggling. That's huge. And it sounds so silly, but that's so huge. And, our team, they've got, of course, their work cell phones they use for customers, but they are answering text messages on Saturday morning or after hours on a Tuesday because their customer needs help getting into a property. That above and beyond attitude is absolutely just what sets us apart. And I know that that's a huge point of pride for our team, that they do go above and beyond and work so hard to fight for their customers and help them every step of the way.
Yeah, and we can attest to this. MaKayla, I want you to talk a little bit more about the Leasing Amazing Race that you put on, because when we were back in the office, it was so much fun. You let me participate. I appreciate that. It was so much fun, but talk about one of the challenges where we had to view other properties. Talk a little bit about that. So that's firsthand knowledge of a comparison that I feel like might be worth mentioning.
Yeah, so we did do an amazing race just as like a kind of fun team building activity. But it is so important to make sure that we are aware of our competition and we know what we're up against. So this is something that we keep an eye on outside of just the amazing race. But one of the challenges was to go to a competitor's property, view the property, find out about their application requirements, find out about their process. And every single team could not get a hold of anyone. I mean, they reached a voicemail or it just rang for forever. No one ever talked to anyone at another company. And that just further solidifies the fact that you can call Alabama Rental Property right now and someone's going to answer the phone, that sets us apart in just leaps and bounds when customers need help.
100%. You can call our number right now. We can post it out and you can call it and you're going to talk to a person. And that person is probably, they'll be able to answer some of the high level questions, and then they're going to put you with a licensed real estate agent. And that piece of it, the going above and beyond, our average length of stay right now is 39 months. And your average homeowner only lives in a property 5 to 7 years. So we look at it as it's no different than helping someone buy a home. We're putting somebody in a property that they're going to make their home. It's really no different than the purchase. So we're walking, they're licensed agents for brokerage and helping them through the way. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just a different viewpoint.
Absolutely.
And a different approach to putting tenants in our properties.
Yeah, I think that's a huge point to make too. Like, the team spends so much time with their customers. Most of the customers we deal with are families with kids. And, they spend time with these kids. I know one of our leasing agents a couple weeks ago, she was showing a property, carrying around the one of her kids on her hip, helping her view the property. The team, of course, we want to get your house rented as an investor. We want you cash flowing as soon as possible. But in the leasing department, we really do have two customers. We, of course, are serving the investors, getting their houses rented, but we're also serving our tenants and making sure that we find them the perfect home for their family.
So finding all of the things that that we're doing with marketing and the properties and the 6 licensed real estate agents. We talked a little bit about the marketing strategies, but what else? You know, and I'm cheating because I know, and I'm teeing you up to go into a little bit more about the above and beyond, and just to really solidify, hey, we're pushing occupancy and stuff. So talk a little bit about the extras that you do.
Yeah. So one of the really fun things that we do get to do pretty often actually is we do a lot of promotions for our customers. So this can be in the form of a free TV or a stove or an air fryer or, you know, just about anything you can think of. Of course, gift cards. We love to give out gift cards. Every single Thanksgiving, what we do is we do a free Thanksgiving dinner for any of our customers who place a deposit between the 1st of November and then Thanksgiving. So this year, I think we provided 15 Thanksgiving dinners. I think this is our 3rd or 4th annual year of doing that. So that's like super fun, especially around the holidays. And then this December, at the beginning of December, we did the 12 days of Christmas, which was super fun. Every single day from December 1st through the 12th was a different gift. So if you were a customer and you placed your deposit on the 3rd, you got an Instant Pot. And if you placed your deposit on the 10th, you might have gotten a gift card to Home Depot, or I think we had some Home Goods gift cards, you know, different things like that. It's really fun for our customers to kind of get involved and also get our houses occupied.
I mean, 100%. It's definitely a 2-for-1. Do you find that it helped? I mean, because we're doing these promotions obviously in the slower months to try to keep people engaged and stuff. But do you find that it helps, that it increases, I guess, activity during those times?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that especially, you know, Thanksgiving time, Christmas time, November, December, and especially this year with COVID, families are struggling. You know, a lot of people are experiencing, you know, decreased hours at work or job losses. And, you know, having that Thanksgiving meal that they didn't have to pay for is super helpful. Or, hey, an extra Christmas present I didn't have to buy. That's super helpful for customers. And it also kind of gets a little fire into their butts to get those deposits put down, of course.
That's true. That's true. So if they're wanting something particular on that day, then they're kind of more likely a little bit more push to put down that security deposit. My favorite though, I gotta admit, kind of coming into August and everybody's like, what do we do for school? And all these parents are really concerned. MaKayla and her team, everybody that put down a security deposit, was it the first 2 weeks of August or was it all of August?
I think it was the first 2 weeks.
The first 2 weeks. They got a Kindle tablet, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Those are super fun.
Right, to help kids and their distance learning. So I just love that. That's really trying to help put families in homes. Okay, so go back to kind of, you know, some key tactics, marketing. What would you say is the biggest obstacle? Like what's the biggest roadblock you run into when you guys are trying to lease a property?
I think that the biggest roadblock would probably be just getting in front of people, getting eyes on our houses. That's not something we struggle too much with, but it is just super important to make sure that, you know, we're getting people viewing our houses as quickly as possible. And I think one of the biggest reasons we haven't struggled with that is that when we get houses from the move outs, or whether it be renovations or the new constructions now, they look fantastic. And that is huge. When someone walks into the home and, you know, the final touches are perfect, the renovation details are great, the paint looks good on the walls, that's a huge deal for the customers. And, you know, even if they don't go with that first house, having every single house look amazing is so important. So when they go to the second house, they know what kind of quality to expect.
Right. I guess that's more of a benefit than an obstacle.
Oh, I know. But listen, the obstacle is getting people to view the houses, but we don't struggle too much with it just because we have great houses coming to us.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. You know, we're trying to get them to a certain quality. There is a fine line that you have to play with renovation and a rental, you know, you can't over renovate a rental property, or then you kind of lose your cash flow. So we've got a ton of other questions. So let's see, so the first one, going back to a lease renewal, we talked about the average length of stay being 39 months. So our renewals, what does that cost, and what does that look like for the tenant when, we only sign when we're signing 2-year leases? And we do have the option for a 1 year, but they have to pay an increased amount a month. So when the 2 years is up, what's the renewal process look like?
So we try to get all of our renewals in 60 days before their lease termination. That's super important to us to kind of be looking ahead. We're going to be ending this year with about a 55% renewal rate, which is fantastic. And then when a tenant does renew, they have a couple different options. They can renew for another 2-year lease with a smaller rent increase. They also have the option of a 1-year lease, a 6-month lease, or a month-to-month lease. If they do go the month-to-month route, that's an additional $100 on top of their rent. And we do everything that we can. We try to incentivize tenants to stay as much as possible, because a lot of them are long-term tenants and we value them so much.
Right. I mean, I know we've talked about this before, and guys, I'm so sorry if you've heard me say this until I'm blue in the face, but MaKayla's right. We try to keep our good tenants. We try to keep them fat and happy, and hey, look, we're not going to increase the rent by $50 to $100 just to try to get that increase if they've been good tenants, if they taken care of the property and not and paid on time, and if they have paid late, they're paying their late fee. Those tenants, we want to keep them. So we're not going to increase the rent because there's no amount. There's no comparison to the cost of a move out. You're talking about move-out fees, and you're talking about vacancy. Then you have to get it released. There's another leasing fee for getting it, another tenant placed. So it's just not worth it if you've got a good paying tenant, and if you can get an extra $20, $25 or $30 or something like that, then yes, we're pushing for it. But we're not gonna do that to our really good tenants. And I
can't agree or stress that enough. I know we've had tenants where it's time for renewal, and there's been some, especially this year, who have told us, I can't afford the extra $25. I can't do it. If it's out of the property or $25 increase, I have to leave. And, in those kind of scenarios, we've got to make our best judgment call for the tenant and the investor, and keep a tenant that's paying on time in that property, instead of going through move-out process, going through a vacancy process, when you have this fantastic tenant sitting in front of you.
Right. I couldn't agree more. Okay, so we got a really good question as far as the eviction moratorium and the ability for tenants to not have to pay the rent if they can't, and how many of the 95% of occupied properties have tenants paying on time each month in full. So that was a lot, and I know that's more AR and collections, but let's see. Right now we are, oh my gosh, let's see. Get that number. What our eviction rate is. Historically, our eviction rate has run 1% or lower. With COVID, we have seen an increase, and with the ban on evictions when everything first shut down, when we couldn't send anybody. So now we're seeing that on the end. But I think last week during our meetings, we go over all of these numbers every week, and we were at it was like 2.3 or something like that. But I got somebody looking up that, so I'm not lying or giving false information. But the eviction moratorium, one of the big things that I want to clarify is that evictions are normal across the board. Thank you so much, Jesse. It was 2.6 last week. And the eviction moratorium only affects those that can prove they've been affected. So the CDC put out the moratorium that said, hey, you cannot be evicted. You have to sign this declaration. Well, then Jefferson County and several other municipalities across the country came out with, hey, requirements, and that if you are going to sign this declaration and you're going to continue to live in a property rent-free, then you have to prove that you've been affected. And so there's a couple of other requirements that are, proof that income or hours or any of that has shifted. So again, like MaKayla was saying, back in March and April, we were expecting with this eviction moratorium to see a drastic increase in evictions and non-paying tenants, but we have not seen that. And I think a lot of that too comes down to the tenants themselves. And hey, the tenants that are going to pay rent are still going to pay rent no matter if it's happening right now. And I think that plays a lot into our screening process. So like, walk us through what that looks like, what our requirements are to lease one of our properties.
Yeah. So just a couple of our requirements. We do require a 550 credit score. You have to have 3 times the rent in monthly income. We don't allow any bankruptcies in the last year. And then we also look at both the criminal history and the rental history. So any previous evictions will be taken into consideration. And we do get a rental reviewed for every single tenant. And there have been scenarios where we'll have, a particular property where we've got 2 different applicants that are both fighting for the property. They've got deposits in hand. No, I want it. No, I want it. And we have had to make those calls and really look at the, applicants that we have before us and say, okay, who's going to be the better applicant, the better tenant for this investor? Because that's, the goal of what we're doing. We want families and homes that they love, and we want fantastic tenants for our investors.
Yeah. And so being a little stricter, I mean, yes, it can hurt. We might have to wait a couple of weeks to find that tenant, but it's worth it.
Absolutely.
And this eviction moratorium has done nothing but prove that. Just given what our current eviction rate is, we manage 1,300 properties, so 2.6% of 1,300 is not astronomical, given that there is the moratorium out there. Okay, this is going to be a corny one, but most important thing about leasing a property.
Oh gosh, most important thing is going to be, of course, getting the perfect tenant and then making sure we have the highest rent possible.
Oh, come on, give more than that. I mean, you gotta give me more.
I think leasing has such a unique role in, the Spartan process, because we're in the middle of everything. We're in the middle of the investor side of things. We're in the middle of, getting our tenants in, and we really work hard to make sure that we've got good properties in good areas with good tenants. And we work really hard to make sure that we have the right prices on these properties. Every house is a rental if you've got the right price on it. And we, spend a lot of time and analyzing both our rentals and external rentals and making sure that those prices are what they need to be. We want a house rented quickly, but we want the most we can get in rent for our investors. That's why they come to us. They're here to be cash flowing.
So that little piece right there, every house can be a rental for the right price. How do you manage that? How does the Alabama rental property leasing team manage the right price to ensure that we can keep a tenant in there long term? How do you do that?
Yeah, so every single week, myself and Stephanie and a couple of people on the team, including Lindsay, we all have a meeting every single week, and we look at the houses that we have under contract for our renovation side. We look at, okay, this is going to be a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Where is this house located? Is this in a good zip code? Is this a good area? We street view these houses, people. I mean, we're deep diving into these houses, and we're making sure that whatever the rent is going to be for this property, that's attainable. We definitely want the highest rent possible, but it has to be attainable. If you're listing a 2-bedroom, 1-bath for $1,200, it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. But we keep a really close thumb on that because it's so important to make sure that we're doing right by our tenants, but doing right by our investors as well.
And setting the right price. And
yes,
when you're saying you're street viewing it, I mean, like the Spartan Invest team has already laid eyes on it. And this is just an extra
another
in our calculator. And we talked a lot about that in our last tips with Josh, who's on our acquisitions team, and how crucial that is, factoring in all of the different metrics that give a property value and get to that correct rental price. But you guys are just laying an additional eye on it just to make sure that the assessment is correct and that the rent, that you feel comfortable renting the property for that price.
Absolutely. I think that, one of the most crucial steps, before a house even gets to the leasing part of the process is making sure that the rent is correct. We do have that calculator in place that takes into consideration, tons and tons of features, but there are just, small things you can't account for, metrically like that. You got to make sure you've got eyes on it. And I think it's so important to make sure that we are, and we did this recently, updating the calculator, making sure that we have all of that information as accurate as possible. I mean, that we do that once a quarter, updating our numbers. And that isn't just, for the acquisition side, but, for our renewals, for our move outs, making sure that everything is getting the best that it can be. It's so important to make sure that we're staying on top of this information as much as possible. I mean, I think that we spent 2-3 hours in a meeting a couple weeks ago, just kind of going over all of our rentals, where we're renting, competitors. Like, that's a huge part of the process.
Yeah, and it really is. And the fact that we're local here in Birmingham, we've got all the boots on the ground here in Birmingham and in Huntsville. All of our employees, well, I'd say overwhelming majority of our employees are in Birmingham and in Huntsville. And one thing that Josh was talking about last week that I know you can speak to as well on the leasing side is knowing, good streets. You have a zip code that we say, hey, okay, so the price in this zip code is X, but hey, on this street and this street, it's a little bit more. And knowing those prices, knowing that the value that those areas and even the street areas add is huge. And you can only do that when you are so local and the market through and through. So yeah, that's a really, really, really good point. And I remember that meeting too. I mean, it was, I think your slideshow had about 27 slides. Yes.
I love a good slideshow. Like, I love a good spreadsheet.
I know. It was a great information, great information. So I think that's all of our questions, man. We've had some awesome questions, and I thank you guys so much for tuning in. And we were very, very passionate about our occupancy, about our leasing, and because that's everything. That's, if your property is not cash flowing, it's not performing. And so we put a lot of time and energy and emphasis and money to making sure that we get your property leased as fast as possible. MaKayla, if you want to say goodbye.
Yeah, thanks guys for watching. It's been super fun. Bye.
Bye. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I hope everyone has a great holiday week. And we welcome in a very, very special and great 2021. I think everybody's done with this year. So happy holidays, everybody. And thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate it.